which support our programs from the main stage to our encore room performances, but also our youth outreach and education programs. Just last year we launched High Rev, which is a elite youth performance troupe for
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Peoria Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Welcome, everybody. We're going to begin with a roll call tonight. Vice Chairman Jay Atluski.
Present.
Secretary Brian Patterson.
Present.
Commissioner Sean Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Linda Grice.
Present.
Commissioner Clay Alsop.
Present.
Commissioner Joanna Condi. Absent. And alternate Commissioner Tony Fighter.
Present.
Very good. Thank you all. I'd like to read an opening statement that we begin all meetings with. This commission is composed of Peoria citizens who have been appointed by the City Council to serve on the commission as a civic responsibility without compensation. Our duty is to study and review planning and zoning issues within the City of Peoria. The commission hears zoning cases, holds public hearings, or may conduct a study session on a topic. Decisions made by the commission are forwarded as written recommendations to the City Council, who take final action. All hearings are conducted in accordance with the rules for procedures and Robert's Rules of Order. Each case will be called in the order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. In the interest of maintaining a fair and efficient hearing, the commission adheres to the following steps. Chair will open the case. City staff will then provide a brief report and recommendation. The applicant is then invited to give a presentation. Then any member of the public may provide testimony. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes. When we call your name, please come to the podium and provide your name and address. After all the testimony has been taken, we will invite the applicant back up to provide any rebuttal or final statements. The commission will then discuss the case and make its decision. Anyone wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the commission assistant on my left. And please be as brief as possible and do not repeat statements already made by others. Any member of the public may appeal to the City Council the decision of the Commission regarding a conditional use permit. The appeal must be submitted in writing to the Planning and Community Development Department within 15 calendar days of the date of the Commission's decision. All Commission recommendations on public hearing items, including general plan amendments, rezones, zoning code amendments, and special plans, move forward to a regular City Council meeting. The City Council will then act on the recommendation of the Commission. The City Council may concur with the decision, modify it, overturn it, or remand it back to the Commission for further consideration. We welcome citizens' comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation. And this is the final call to submit speaker request forms. If anybody wishes to speak, please fill out a speaker request form and provide it to Ms. Ernest, seated at the end of the dais, and she will get it to me, and we'll be sure to call you up when it's appropriate in the agenda. And let the record reflect that Commissioner Joanna Condi has been seated. So the next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is for items that are routine in nature and consists of 2 items tonight. And that is 1C, disposition of absences. This is a discussion and possible action to approve and excuse the absences of Chairman Jeff Nelson and Secretary Brian Patterson from the November 7th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Item 2C is the minutes. Discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on November 7th, 2019. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments regarding any of the items on the consent agenda tonight? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Please vote. And the consent agenda passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioners. We're now going to move on to our regular agenda. We have one item tonight under new business. That's item 3R, Christopher Todd Communities on 83rd Avenue. General Plan Amendment GPA 19-01 and rezoning request 019-01. This is a request to amend approximately 17.7 acres within the Old Town Specific Area Plan from medium-high density residential, that's 18 to 25 dwelling units per acre, to medium-density residential, which is 5 to 18 dwelling units per acre. The request also includes a proposed rezone for the same site from the existing Colonial 83rd and Olive Planned Area Development to Christopher Todd Communities on 83rd Planned Area Development Zoning District. The site is located on the northwest corner of 83rd Avenue and Olive Avenue. We'll take action on the general plan amendment and the rezoning request separately, but there'll be one staff report. Staff, please present your report.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Cody Gleason, Principal Planner with the City of Peoria Planning Department. As referenced, the case before you tonight is the Christopher Todd Communities on 83rd Avenue. This will be both the general plan amendment as well as the rezone presentation. The applicant, Buse Gilbert McGroder, on behalf of Christopher Todd Communities, has submitted an application for the northwest corner of 83rd Avenue and Olive. The site is approximately 17.65 acres, and that proposal is for a 189 dwelling unit, single-story, multifamily community. Now, here are the 2 aspects of the proposal, one being the general plan amendment, which would amend the Old Town Specific Area Plan from that medium high density residential designation consisting of 18 to 25 dwelling units per acre, and actually reducing that down to the medium density residential designation within the Old Town Specific Area Plan. And I'll get into a little bit more detail about the difference between the Old Town Specific Area Plan and the General Plan land use designations in a moment. But that medium density residential designation carries a density of 5 to 18 dwelling units per acre with a target of 12. The rezoning proposal for this would be to rezone the existing PAD from the Colonial and Colonial 83rd Avenue and Olive planned area development to the new Christopher Todd Communities on 83rd planned area development. So though they're both PADs, this would be a new PAD to redo the development standards of the site. The existing land use is vacant. As I referenced, it is currently entitled. However, that entitlement has been in place since the mid-2000s. We've seen no development activity on it until the time of this proposal to rezone the property. That prior zoning designation was also for multifamily. This proposal would be a multifamily development in somewhat of a different format. To the north of the subject site, you have Hatcher Road Half Street, the southern portion of the remaining half street, and I'll give you some more information on that later. But that is immediately north of the actual parcels. And then beyond that half street is the Mesquite Vistas subdivision. When that subdivision was constructed, that occupied the northern portion of that half street. To the west, you have the Cedar Brook single-family residential development. I will note while we're here, the Cedar Brook subdivision is predominantly single-story residential, single-family residential. To the north in the Mesquite Vistas, you have a mix of both one- and two-story single-family residential. To the south, you have Olive Avenue and then the recently entitled Villages at Pioneer Park development that came before the commission, I want to say a few months ago. And then to the east, you have 83rd Avenue, and across 83rd Avenue is a relatively recent development case that came before the commission within the last couple of years for Park at Roundtree Ranch, and that development is actually under construction right now. That development is a mixed-use development with the majority of it being occupied by, again, a multifamily development. In this case, in the case of Park at Roundtree Ranch, that is more of a traditional format, so it is a multi-story, multifamily development. Pedestrian access is one of the key focal points for this development. We, as city staff, worked with the applicant to identify opportunities for really activating the space and providing opportunities for those pedestrians to make it to right-of-way. And in this case, along 83rd Avenue, you have the 83rd Avenue bus route with a shelter along the northern portion of the subject property. So as you can see here, there's several pedestrian access points. Many of them are actually themed access points. In a few slides, I'll show you some of the thematic character that's gone into each of those entry points. But I just wanted to pause here and give you a breakdown of kind of where those access points are and what those allow for. So along the 83rd Avenue frontage, you can see there you have 6 access points. That gives you immediate access to 83rd Avenue from the subject site, whether it is to go to the bus route on 83rd Avenue and that shelter I referenced that's immediately adjacent to the development. There is also a pedestrian access point onto Olive Avenue. And in this case, there is the pedestrian access point to the northwest corner of the development, again on that Hatcher, what is currently that Hatcher southern half street of right-of-way. You can see here the vehicular access points, both of which are located on 83rd Avenue. There is no vehicular access onto Olive Avenue. The southernmost drive aisle would allow for full movement turning, and the northernmost drive aisle would be egress only, and it would only allow for a right turn. So from the development southbound onto 83rd Avenue. As I referenced several times, here we are with the discussion of the Hatcher Road half street. So Mesquite Vistas, when that development was constructed, the city chose to abandon the northern half street of Hatcher Road, and thus the Mesquite Vistas subdivision developed on that northern half street. The southern half street remained vacant in anticipation of any development to the south. What that remaining half street creates, if it were to be left there, would be a nuisance and maintenance as well as safety concern area, because ultimately that creates a corridor of about 750 feet where there would be no penetrations into that area. There would be limited access, limited maintenance, and not a lot of capability for both safety as well as maintenance personnel to get in there and address any concerns. What is proposed as a part of this development is the city abandoning that southern half street of Hatcher Road, similar to what was done for the development to the north, Mesquite Vistas, in order to allow that half street to be incorporated within the development. The reason for that abandonment with this proposal is that we don't create that nuisance or safety concern area, and it provides a cohesive development pattern, because ultimately that remaining half street wouldn't be able to function as a roadway. So when you're left with only that remaining southern half street, there's no capability to provide vehicular access from east-west along the Hatcher Road alignment. In this case, as I referenced, pedestrian access is proposed. So you can see the red portion there along with the pedestrian access indication. That is from the common accessible sidewalk area of the development to what would remain of the Hatcher half street. The applicant would be improving that with landscaping and sidewalk from their gated portion to the 84th Avenue and Hatcher Road right-of-way. So that would include pedestrian access northwest that would be able to also facilitate ADA access. Currently, there is no sidewalk ramp on the southeast corner or the northwest corner of that intersection of 84th Avenue and Hatcher. So this development, as one of the conditions you'll find in your staff report, would be making that improvement to provide their pedestrians access from their development over to the sidewalk that you see along the north side of Hatcher Road. That's just south of that green space. Well, we have an abundance of clicks. There we go. The private yard space would occupy the remainder of that Hatcher Road half street. So you can see here the area in green. That would be indicated as a part of their private yard space, which is a component of each unit within the development. And we'll talk about the sizing of that as we get closer to the amenity component. But you can see here the remainder of that Hatcher Road half street would be abandoned and accommodate the yard space of those units on the northern boundary. Open space. So in the case of this development, what they've chose to do is identify an opportunity for private space in an abundance and modify that accordingly with some of the common open space areas that you would typically find in multifamily developments. Really what they're trying to do is have it function similarly to a single-family residence, the difference in this case being that you are not left with the maintenance and upkeep responsibilities that you would on a single-family home. So with the standards that you would often find in the design review manual, we have a common open space requirement of 150 square feet per bedroom. In this case, the PAD proposes a modified standard, so 125 square feet per bedroom, which results in a reduction of about 7,400 square feet. Now, they have accommodated that by increasing the standards for the private open space. So you can see here the design review manual would, I just tried to make it easy for you because we have a very awkward formula that's 12 feet in diameter. So ultimately that just results in 113 square feet per unit for private open space. What that typically looks like in a multifamily development is patio space on ground floor units and then balcony space on the upper stories. In this case, this development has proposed 200 square feet per one bedroom and 300 square feet per two bedroom, both of which are well in excess of our requirements. In this case, it results in a 75% increase for one bedroom units and a 165% increase for two bedroom units. What the net difference ends up being is, even though there's a slight reduction in the common open space, there's an overabundance of private open space. What that results in is approximately 19,700 square feet of additional open space beyond what would otherwise be required by our design review manual. So what we have here is a listing of the amenities that are provided by this development. The amenity plan is kind of small, and I have some further slides that'll give you a little bit more detail on those items, but just to run down the list for you, the features include pool, spa. Next to that pool and spa, there's a covered ramada with seating areas, a fireplace, a TV viewing area, again, adjacent to that pool. And then immediately adjacent to the pool area is an event lawn for residents of the community to engage in passive open space areas, whether they want to walk their dog, play Frisbee. I hear bocce ball's fun, but it's just not for me. There's also resident amenity areas along the southern border on Olive Avenue, and then an activity lawn kind of centrally located north in the community. Here are the main components of the amenity areas. As I referenced, that pool area adjacent to the event lawn and TV viewing / fireplace area. There's also a fitness studio next to, if you continue on the other side of the pool from the TV area, there's a fitness studio for residents of the community. On the left side, you see that enlargement of the amenity area that's along the Olive Avenue frontage. So here we have in the highlighted area, there's several of these throughout the community, but this is just a typical example of the multi-use courtyard area. So what we have here is a centralized shade tree as well as walking paths and seating areas for residents to enjoy walking throughout their community and being able to have that pedestrian access throughout the development. As referenced, this is one of those themed access points. So there are several of these along the 83rd Avenue frontage and the Olive Avenue frontage. So this gives you a picture of what that entry point would look like, both from a pedestrian perspective as well as a top-down view. So when the pedestrian enters, there's plenty of shade, landscaping, and then that themed trellis point as you walk into the community. The general plan designation for this site is master planned area, which might be throwing you off, but hopefully we provided a bit of explanation when we did the general plan amendment. What that means is there is a specific area plan for this location, and that specific area plan delves into a little bit more information about what the specified uses are for the area and what we see moving forward from not only a land use perspective, but also oftentimes there's design characteristics within those specific area plans. In this case, it is the Old Town specific area plan. So one of the focuses of the Old Town specific area plan is giving you that feel that you are actually in an old town. So what does that mean? It means drawing buildings towards the street. It means orienting the amenities and the community itself in a fashion that you're able to easily walk from one area to another. In this case, the buildings have been reoriented from the initial proposal to accommodate that focal point on pedestrian access and giving the end resident the ability to take public transit via the 83rd Avenue route or continue south on 83rd Avenue to the Pioneer Park, which is just south and east of this site. Oh, I apologize. Clicked too fast. The zoning that you see on the right there, the Cedar Brook development that's immediately west of this site is zoned R18. The Mesquite Vistas subdivision to the north is zoned R16. So those are the immediate boundary conditions as far as single-family residential. The reason I had referenced the backyard space a little bit later is both in R16 and R18, what you'll find for the rear setback of those developments that have that zoning designation is 15 feet. What the applicant has proposed here along the boundary with single-family residential, so both to the north as well as to the west, is a 20-foot area. That area would be occupied by the proposed backyard spaces. So it's an increase in what you would see from a typical single-family residential development, and especially considering multifamily adjacency. Notification for both the general plan amendment as well as the rezoning was provided in accordance with the zoning ordinance standards. So that means a postcard went out to property owners within 600 feet of the proposal, as well as HOAs within 1 mile. A legal ad was also provided within the newspaper for this public hearing, and the site was posted in accordance with city requirements. A neighborhood meeting was held by the applicant on April 15th. There were 3 residents in attendance for that meeting, as well as the development team for the developer and city staff. As a summary of the meeting was provided by the applicant, they then invited the property owners that were in attendance to offer up any questions or concerns that they had. One of those primary focuses was the Hatcher Road half street. The prior development that this site was entitled for, the Colonial 83rd and Olive, had identified that that southern half street would go to the residents to the north. In this case, that is not a part of the proposal and creates really logistical concerns for the city in that we would then potentially have dead space areas that abut those single-family homes, as well as the multifamily development if that were to occur. So staff has identified that that would be an undesirable opportunity for this development, and as a result, the proposed development would not include that stipulation. So the southern portion of the Hatcher Road Half Street would remain with the subject development. The Peoria Unified School District is notified on all residential zoning cases. We often request comments from them, and in this case, the school district has identified that they've been in communication with the developer, and they're working closely together on finalizing a development agreement that would aid the school district. The findings for the general plan amendment are that it's in conformance with not only the intent of the City of Peoria general plan, but more specifically in accordance with the intent of the Old Town specific area plan and the character that's identified within that plan. The modification to the land use designation does not present an adverse impact on the surrounding community, and in fact lowers the intensity of the subject site from what the current entitlement would allow for. In the case of the rezoning application, the proposed PAD is in conformance with the land use designation that's identified in the minor general plan amendment. And the proposed development standards actually allow for a more harmonious transition from the multifamily development to the single-family development that resides on the north and west boundaries of the subject site. In addition, the proposal provides enhanced open space and amenity requirements that wouldn't otherwise be required by the city's design review manual standards. As a result, staff recommends that the commission take two separate actions. Action one being to approve case GPA 1901 and recommend that approval to the City Council. Action two would be to recommend approval of the rezoning case Z 1901 to the City Council, subject to the conditions identified within the city's staff report. And with that, I would take any questions.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Gleason. Do any commissioners have any questions of Mr. Gleason or staff? Linda? Commissioner Grace, you are recognized.
Little trouble. Could you talk to me about the rationale for ingress being limited to one way into the subdivision?
Yes, this is Brandon Forey, Assistant City Traffic Engineer. One of the concerns we have is proximity of access points on arterial streets. In this particular case, we do have two accesses onto 83rd Avenue. The primary access is full access, which aligns with the access at the park at Roundtree Ranch. That has a sufficient level of service to accommodate the facility with some pressure taken off by the egress at the secondary access. What we typically like to see is a deceleration lane anytime we have ingress access from an arterial street. And in the case of 83rd Avenue, the length of the property did not allow for a second access with sufficient distance from the primary access while also allowing a deceleration lane. So in this particular case, the volumes anticipated with this development should be adequately served with the primary access, again with some of that pressure being taken off by allowing the egress with the right only from the northern driveway.
Is there a need for a second emergency access point?
The northern access does somewhat serve as secondary access for the fire department, but I can't specifically speak to the requirements of the fire department.
Chairman, Commissioner Grice, as Brandon mentioned, both of those access points, so both of those areas along 83rd Avenue would provide fire access. All of our cases are routed to the fire department for review, and in this case, they've identified that those two access points would be sufficient for if a fire truck needed to access the site for any reason.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Graves. Commissioner Patterson.
Yep, I had a question about the pedestrian gates on 83rd Avenue. Will those be self-closing gates?
Chairman, Commissioner Patterson, that hasn't been discussed with the applicant. They are here tonight. I would imagine yes, otherwise it may defeat the purpose of the gated community.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? I had a quick question, Mr. Gleason. We had said in the report that homeowners within, or HOAs within 1 mile of the project would be notified. Can you tell me, does Cedar Brook and Mesquite Vistas, do they have a homeowners association?
Chairman, I would have to go back and look. I believe Mesquite Vistas for sure does. Cedar Brook, I just can't say right off. I don't know.
Okay.
Mesquite Vistas, the reason I reference that with surety is because they have private streets, they are a gated community, so they would need a HOA to manage those facilities.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you. All right, well, seeing, oh, sorry about that. Commissioner Condi.
What is your target market? Do you know what the target market is, or the developer's going to be speaking, right?
Chairman, Commissioner Condi, that is correct. The developer can probably speak better to the target market for
Okay,
this
I'll wait.
development.
I'll hold off.
All right, last call. Any further questions? All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Is the applicant present tonight? I assume so. Would you like to speak, sir?
Just getting an update on I'm providing an update on
If you could please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Jeff Bliley, 701 North 44th Street with Buse Gilbert McGroder here. I don't really have much of a presentation. I think staff put on a pretty good presentation. We're just here to ask for your support and answer any questions you have. I'm getting the answer to your question about the target market.
Downsizers as well as first-time homebuyers.
So, yeah, you could have just answered, but downsizers, so people that are downsizing from their homes, kind of that first-time home buyer, but not looking to buy that type of market. And then, traditional renters that just aren't looking to have, people above them and next to them. So it's a market for people that aren't willing, not necessarily buying, but wanting to rent. I was at a presentation the other day and about a similar type project, and what I heard was there was a lot of single females were renting in these type of communities because of the security aspect and such as that, and having the yard and things like that, where they didn't have to maintain. So also the rents that, and I don't know if you have a target on the rents, we don't have that yet, but traditionally a little higher than the more traditional stacked 2- and 3-story type apartment complexes.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
No, well, somewhat. So these are going to be rentals
Correct.
rather than sales. That's what I understood, right?
Yes, this will be an apartment complex, but it's structured where they're all single-story.
Okay. But they could, it looks like it could become a, attached single-family PUD as well. I mean, it looks very, like duplexes, et cetera. They look very much like.
Yes, the homes are set up with little backyards as duplexes and single-family detached. Certainly, if this was ever going to be sold, it would have to go through a platting process, and you'd have to condominiumize the whole
I
thing.
understand.
But the intent is not to ever do that. It's to be operated the same way that a traditional apartment complex would be operated.
Okay. And what are the typical units going to be? 2 bedrooms, 2
They're
baths?
all 1 and 2 bedrooms is what we find is the target market for these. So
The
no-
smaller ones that are in blue would be 1 bedroom?
Yes, that's correct. Color
And then
coded
the
here.
larger ones are going to be two-bedroom, two-bath?
Correct.
Just out of curiosity. Well, I think it could fit very well because there's that new medical complex coming in, and there's going to be a need for the people that work there to have a place to live. And often those are people that are just entering into, they leave home, they get a job, then they need to rent before they can buy. And so this is a good stepping stone into, into the idea of always having some place to live in Peoria where you can be near where you work and then move on. So, and it's an interesting concept. It's different than we've seen many times before. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Feider.
Hi, good evening. Has the applicant done other projects similar to this in town?
Yes, there are similar projects. There's one on the, it's also Christopher Todd Community, I believe. No, it's not. It was I get confused. We are doing a number of these projects. So I don't believe Christopher Todd has any in Peoria, but we have other projects, a few other Christopher Todd projects in Surprise area.
That's the same type of product?
A very similar product. I think
Okay.
this is the quality is a little higher on this one than the one in Surprise that we're doing right now as
And
far as.
Christopher Todd Communities developed that?
Correct.
Okay, and their intent is to develop this, not just entitle it, and
That's correct, yes, Christopher Todd.
so they
Communities.
will develop it? Okay.
Yes.
Any concern that we now have three corners of the, kind of the bungalow rental property at this same intersection? In terms of demand, future demands?
We don't think so. This product is very in demand, and I think your other option would be to have two corners of stacked multifamily and two corners of single-family multifamily. So we think that the demand for this product is very high right now, and that we'll have no problem renting these out. We think it's a better fit for this corner, given what's happening to the west of it as well. And it does, like staff pointed out, provides a better transition, especially when you've got a predominantly single-story subdivision just there adjacent to it.
That's all I have.
So, yeah, okay. Commissioner Patterson.
Thank you. I had the question on the pedestrian gates. I was wondering how they would operate, because I could see kids and dogs getting out on 83rd Avenue pretty easily if the gates were left open.
Okay.
So I wanted to know if they were,
Andy? Somebody can come up and help me a little bit. Andy, just tell me how the gates are.
For the record, Andy Jokums, Buse Gilbert McGroder. The gates will all be self-closing. They will all have keypads on both sides, so for ingress and egress, they will be locked for residents only.
great, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further questions of the applicant? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ernst, any speaker request forms on this item? No. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be taking action separately on the general plan amendment and the rezoning request. Oh, excuse me.
Questions that the homeowners on the north side can ask?
If you would like to ask a question, you can come up to the podium. Let me reopen the public hearing. Absolutely. But I ask that you come up to the podium and give your name and address. Thank you for that. I'm going to reopen the public hearing. We have a speaker who would like to ask a question. Your name and
Hi,
address, please.
My name's Dan Scarfo. I'm in 8385 West Carroll Avenue, just a couple houses in on the north side of the said property that these folks are proposing. I've been in there since 2003, and in 2008, when the Colonial Properties was looking to go into place, they had come and talked to the homeowners on the north side, and some of them are here now. And we were concerned relative to what they were looking to put up, the 2- and 3-story homes, and having a level of privacy that we were looking and used to having within the gated community. And we worked out some details relative to allotting roughly 20 to 30 feet of that no man's land, as Cody indicated, a nuisance section of that to the northern homeowners, where the property owners would be putting up a fence, and we would be putting up lateral fences that would extend our backyards to that to act as additional buffer zone for us, so we would have additional privacy that we were looking forward to. Since that didn't happen, and then now in 2018, 19, with Hancock, we had similar discussion with them, and we're working through additional buffer sections, a little bit shorter in footage than what was worked through with the Colonial folks, and that seemed it didn't happen. Now we're at this stage here where we're basically, I guess, don't appear to have too much rights in that respect to discuss this a little bit further. The nuisance property, we're concerned about that. We have a compromise. We've thrown that out. It was accepted by 2 different property owners. These property owners did not set up any meetings to talk with us. The notices that were put out, I had actually tried to contact Cody a couple times to try to get some more details on that, and I did not get any response back. So I'd like to understand how the homeowners here and the concerns that they have relative to the property and the privacy that now we're going to have rented homes and backyards right up against that with folks that don't really have a stake in the actual home other than, you know, the rental piece of that. So I don't know if they have landlords that have a level of accountability if there's problems there. And just by the way, I'll note the gate piece of it there, since we have gates and they're actually loaded gates where they close, but we had issues with those. They were locked. We had keys. We had issues with those. It does pose a challenge with kids going back and forth to school, no matter what you have within the gated piece of it. So that's something I think will also be challenging, but having additional privacy for us is important, and having a level of buffer zone, I do, you know, applaud the single story. I think that is a benefit to us, so we don't have folks looking in our backyard. But the Stoneview properties did have a shorter footage of backyard, so we don't have much of a backyard, which puts us in closer proximity to the said property that's being proposed. So I'd appreciate if you guys consider this a little bit more.
Great, thank you for your comments and your question. Would the applicant like to address any of the concerns that were just raised?
We did have a neighborhood meeting, and I wasn't attending, but I was informed that I believe this gentleman did show up at the neighborhood meeting, and I think he did voice that concern. From what I understand, though, his property, his house isn't exactly, it's actually not even behind it. It's one of the first 2 homes on the block. So there's really nothing we can't do. I mean, if the city wants to give him back the portion of Hatcher that's adjacent to his property, we can't stop that from happening. But I mean, it's beyond our control. As far as the south half of Hatcher, it was incorporated into the project at staff's request. And what we did was, typically the backyards on these units are anywhere from 8 to 10 feet deep. And in that particular area, they're about 30 feet deep. And so we tripled, more than tripled the depth of the backyards to create additional buffer. And I also believe there's a grade drop. There's a grade separation there, so we're lower than the homes to the north. So with the grade drop, with the increased backyard depth, and now because this is a all single-story development and not multi-story like it had been proposed earlier, I think those 3 things alone mitigate and provide the buffer that I think that was the intent to begin with.
Great, thank you. You can stay up there. Commissioner Fighter, you have a question?
I have a couple of questions for staff. How did this half street of Hatcher get incorporated? Was it a strategic decision to abandon that stretch of Hatcher and not punch through to 83rd ultimately?
Chairman, Commissioner Fighter, are you referencing the northern half
Mesquite
street?
Vistas was developed.
I don't have a knowledge as to why that was deemed unnecessary. I don't know if our traffic division would have history on that.
Unfortunately, I don't have any history on that either. That predates, I think, any of the staff present, and we don't have any records of that history that I'm aware of.
Okay. In the property's current zoning, how long, do you have any idea how long it's been currently zoned to the multifamily level that it's currently allowed?
It was approximately 2007, 2008.
when it was zoned multifamily?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And it was entitled, obviously, significant higher density than what's being proposed here. Was it 2- and 3-story product that was allowed under the current zoning?
Yep, Chairman, Commissioner Fighter, that's correct. So the current proposed density for this project is 10.71. The density of the existing entitlement, the Colonial project, is 21 point, I believe, 7.
So roughly half.
Roughly half, that's correct.
What was on the existing zoning, the minimum setbacks for the structures?
It was Chairman, Commissioner Fighter, the minimum setback was 30 feet. However, that was to a 3-story building. So, I'm sorry, a 30-foot height maximum. From that point, that height maximum stepped up. Ultimately, the Colonial property allowed for a 3-story building to be developed on the site.
Okay. So this actually would provide his concerns of privacy. Actually, it's better, it would be better than what's currently zoned. Am I interpreting this properly?
Based on the concerns identified by Mr. Scarfo, that is correct. It would alleviate the concern for visibility. Mr. Scarfo had identified a concern about maintenance for the site. The applicant has identified in their materials that all of the backyard spaces would be maintained by the property manager, so that allows for consistent maintenance of those areas.
Which would all be run by a professional management organization.
That is correct.
So I think one of his concerns was maintenance of the rental units. I think this would provide better protection for that concern because it is professionally managed as opposed to individually owned rental units.
Chairman, Commissioner Fighter, that is correct.
Okay. I don't have anything else.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Otluski, you have a question?
Cody, do we have a close-up of the north end? I thought there was a different view of the north end. But I wanted to see, I think you have a blown-up picture of that.
Oh, this one?
One of them.
Are you perhaps referencing?
That might be. What I'm looking for is the actual space between the building and what would be the property line then. Because I didn't see a footage.
Chairman, Commissioner Otluski, I don't have a close-up of that area. The only items that I have to display are the images that are provided.
He might.
In the applicant's package, there is a proposed site plan that shows the setback.
From reading the site plan, we're showing a minimum 30-foot setback from the property line to the building.
Okay, so
So each-
single story with a 30-foot setback.
Correct. It will be along that north boundary, a 30-foot setback from the property line to the buildings.
Okay, and that will be grass? That'll be rock?
Typically, the backyards are not grass.
That'd be rock, but
Yeah, they're DG.
desert landscaping?
Some artificial turf, some DG. But as it was mentioned, all professionally maintained. So even the backyards are all maintained by the HOA, or by the operator.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Patterson, you have a question.
Yeah, I guess this would be a legal question. When you vacate right away, my understanding is it has to be vacated equally to property owners on the north and on the south. And I think in this case, the north half of Hatcher Road has already been vacated to the northern property owner. And legally, I think the south half has to go to the property owner to the south.
Mr. Chair, members, are you specifically referring to a dedication as opposed to an abandonment? Because they're not always the same.
No, I'm an abandonment.
I'm not familiar with that requirement, but that might be typically how it's done. I don't know there's a legal requirement that has to be done that way.
Okay.
Chairman, Commissioner Patterson, when right-of-way is initially dedicated, it's dedicated by the party that abuts that half-street. So the development to the north received abandonment of that northern portion of the half-street because that would have ultimately been the property that dedicated it. The southern portion, ultimately, it would have been the subject property would have been the property that would have dedicated the southern portion of the half-street.
Right. The point I was trying to make was that the northern property owners are not entitled to that property to the south.
Chairman, Commissioner Patterson, that's correct.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, yeah, sir, you have a follow-up question? We'll recognize you. Yep.
Dan Scarfo again. Just wanted to clarify that the speaking that I had done earlier, I believe, is on behalf of all the homeowners here, so I'm kind of the pointed person. So just because I'm a little bit offset there, the same concerns apply to the rest of these homeowners that are actually further east of that and more in view of the community property. Relative to that no man's land, that seems to be a bit of a challenge, and I think some clarification has been coming about with the discussions we've had, and with respect to my house being kind of a little bit set back, and the comment made of, well, that's up to the city. Well, I was told by Cody, as further clarified by you guys here, that kind of defaults to the south side property owner. That half of that property, that's the no man's land, and it's up to their discretion on how they want to handle that. So if that was fully clarified, certainly it would have aided us as homeowners to reach out further, and I believe, Dawn, you had made several calls to folks with no response back. So we haven't had real good luck trying to get a hold of folks to be able to discuss any of these issues, which is concerning to me, that feel like it's being bullied through a little bit and not taking any of our concerns seriously. And I hope that maybe we can have a little discussion afterwards or at another time with all the homeowners and hear their views and concerns with the properties and even the backyards and being maintained. And I mentioned being maintained, that's just one aspect of it. Kids nowadays, the younger 20s and 30s, they have a lot of parties, and now you have that to potentially contend to. That's right up against folks that they're getting a little bit older and their kids have moved out and they kind of like a little bit of peace and quiet. So we're contending with that. Another reason for a little bit of the buffer zone. So we had many reasons. I got a book full of stuff back from 2008 relative to the discussions with this, and would at least appreciate a little bit of dialogue with the new property owners that we're not basically shut out. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other members of the audience like to speak? Seeing none. And any further sorry, Commissioner Condi, I see you have a question.
The original was done, I think you said in 2007. When were these houses built in the Mesquite Villas?
2002.
2000s. One of the issues that comes up is that they were given the northern half of Hatcher, and the developer at that time had the option of giving deeper backyards and putting smaller houses, and they didn't. And that 15-foot setback is, I've never liked it because you don't have enough room to put a tree in. But those were the rules back then, and that was, when you buy a house there, that's what you get. The 30 feet that they are talking about, there's going to be a wall, and if there is a drop-off, there is a difference in height, that will be, advantageous. And then maybe they can negotiate planting trees or giving some sort of a visual barrier there that could help. This problem is often faced in the city of Phoenix when they've had abandoned alleys and they have to divide it into different yards, backing up in half. But the problem originated with the developer of your homes who didn't give you the extra lot size back then. They went to the bare minimum of 15 feet, I believe. And that makes it really difficult for anyone new to come in to have to, I mean, it's just one of those things. I think you're fortunate there isn't going to be a multi-story building behind you. That's a really big advantage, and that it is going to be professionally managed, and that each person there is going to feel ownership. Even though they're renting, it's going to be like my house, and there's going to be a sense of pride that doesn't come in multi-story apartment buildings. So I'm hoping that that will mitigate some of the issues you have.
Well, keeping in mind, prior to these folks here, Hancock actually was willing to work with us and actually accommodate and talk about those distance separations with a wall on their part and a lateral wall to ours to extend our yard. So there was much more of a dialogue in that respect.
Well, I hope you can continue the dialogue in the future,
Certainly.
getting it so that it's much more amenable to both parties.
Great, thank you, good discussion. Any further questions from commissioners of the applicant? Nope. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing now. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be taking action on the general plan amendment and the rezoning request separately. I'm going to start with the minor general plan amendment, GPA 19-01. Any further questions or comments from commissioners on that general plan amendment before I request a motion? Going once, twice. May I have a motion?
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we approve GPA 1901 to the city council as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Otluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval of case GPA 19-01 to city council. Commissioners, please cast your vote on the minor general plan amendment. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioners. Next is the rezoning request for this property, case Z19-01. Any further questions or comments from Commissioners before we take action on this item?
I do have one.
Commissioner Otluski.
I guess it'd be a two-part. That I am in favor of this. I appreciate the comments from the homeowners. The good news is it is a single story, and that same length is there between, or width between homes. And then also to Christopher Todd and the representative, thank you for bringing what I think is a well-thought-out community with plenty of open space. As Cody said, it was actually more than asked for, so we appreciate when you do open space in these communities.
Okay, thank you for that. May I have a motion on? Make the motion.
Mr. Chair, I motion that we recommend approval, case Z19-01 to City Council.
Thank you, Commissioner Alsop. We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. We have a motion and a second to recommend approval of case Z19-01 to City Council. Commissioners, please cast your vote. And it passes unanimously. Very good. Thank you, Commissioners. The next agenda item is call to the public. Are there any comments from the public on non-agenda items? Seeing none. Next, we'll go to updates from staff. Does staff have anything to report tonight?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, a couple things you can see on the screen. The next meeting won't be until January 16th in the new year. At that time, not only we have a regular agenda, but we'll be doing the appointments for officers at that meeting, the elections for officers. I did want to bring it to everyone's attention that this Saturday, if you have time, in Old Town, we're going to have the Old Town Holiday Festival. It coincides with Second Saturday, so it should prove to be a really nice event this weekend. So if you're able to attend, we'll have that. And I just wanted to wish everyone a very safe and happy holiday season, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you very much. Any commissioners have anything to report? I just want to thank city planning staff and my fellow commissioners for all your hard work and thoughtfulness this year. We had some tough issues before us. General plan update, some meaty issues, and thank you for being part of the process and again, all of your, the thoughtfulness you bring to the commission and for your attendance. And I'm looking forward to working with you next year. I hope your families and yourselves have a wonderful holiday season. And seeing no further business, I call this meeting adjourned.